Hello everyone, nubkeks here. Welcome back to Nub Raids, and in today's video we are going to be talking about the worst of the worst. Who is the worst legendary in every single faction in the game? I thought this would be a fun time to do it because we're going to be having 2x events for Sacreds today, Voids tomorrow, and Ancients on Sunday. I think I might pull some Ancients for it. I think I'm going to be saving my Sacreds and Voids personally. And guys, I do have to mention this because I just realized today that it is the last day of this Prism Shard event. It's in theme of the video, okay? We're talking about the worst of the worst here in today's video. I think I started with 10 crystals. I've got 20 of these shards. Dear Lord, they didn't. I think even if you include the events where you would have to pay money and whale out to do well in the events, pretty much, you still would not have got enough shards to summon. The only physical way to have been able to participate at all in this summoning pool was to buy it with real money. That is the only physical way. Oh my god, it's actually so bad. Yeah, I can't believe it. Again, I actually, I said I really like the summon pool. This is a brilliant pool of champions. Fantastic. That's great. I don't mind that the cost is a bit higher, more like sacred shards. I thought the chances 10% legendary. I even thought that's pretty okay. The whole event actually to me looks reasonably solid, reasonably fun, if the way to obtain the shards was at least somewhat okay. And Plarium turned around and were like, oh, it's all dependent on how easy it is to obtain these shards. What if we give you almost the worst possible variant of how to do it? What about that? How about the worst? Oh my god, absolutely shocking, absolutely shocking. So wow, yeah, big fail of an event. Anyway, let's dive in. Enough blabbering, eh? I just had to rant about that. I had to. It annoyed me. Let's dive in. Banner Lords. Okay, worst legendary in Banner Lords. They're actually a pretty solid selection of legendaries here. There's a few sort of meh ones that aren't great, like Black Knight and Helior. They're kind of meh. Rich Toffee's kind of meh. I'd say the worst of the worst, looking at this, is Taras and Marishka. No, for me, it's either got to be Minaya, or I'm probably going to give it to Lucan the Steadfast. I think is probably the worst. It's a tough one. Minaya, absolutely terrible champion. Nothing good in her kit whatsoever. It's all very bad. Really underpowered. She's basically an epic champion. However, she does let Coronar do some kind of cool things. So her only purpose is to make Coronar a bit better. I think that makes her not quite the worst here, though she's pretty awful. I'd say Lucan is probably the worst. Like, he's got an AoE block active skills on a 4-turn cooldown. It's okay early game, but that's not going to do you too well much further on. Increased defense on himself and ally protection on your team. And then he does a bit of healing on his A1. He just, again, has so little in his kit. Yeah, just very underwhelming champion. I do think his base kit's better than Manaya's, but the fact that she actually has some use with Coronar makes her a little bit better for me. High Elves. Actually not a bad selection of champions here. Yeah, they're actually pretty solid. Again, none that are like, or very few that are massively overpowered. But they're all sort of middle of the road. I would say the worst one is probably Alexander. Yeah, probably Alexander. Yeah, I think it's got to be. He's got to be the worst. Not, not a totally useless champion, but the fact is he's mostly an AoE decreased defense champion that hits pretty hard. Problem is that he needs legendary books, and he was a login champion back in the day. That's the biggest problem. He costs legendary books, which are quite a limited resource, and he's not really giving you very much that you couldn't get from other champions. So it's like, yeah, you might, between your starter champion and War Maiden, let's say you start with Kale or Elhain or whatever, those in War Maiden kind of do the jobs that Alexander does, and you can build them for that. They're not quite as good as he is, obviously, but they don't cost you legendary books, and you can save those for better champs. Yeah, I think he's probably got to be the worst there. Sacred Order. This is actually very tough. We got some really good champions here. I know probably some people might pick Lysea. I actually quite liked her. I don't have her, but I fought against her in live arena, and I thought that she's done those people reasonably well. I think I still won most of those fights, but she, still she had an impact, so I wouldn't say her. Hull's Ring is definitely up there. This guy was really strong for normal Fire Knight. Really came out for speed runs for that. But really fell off then because Fire Knight Hard came out, so he's not super relevant. So he's definitely up there. Um, yeah, I maybe a Bess. Will I give a Bess my vote? I think I might give a Bess my vote though. Hull's Ring. So here's the thing. I think they could add more bosses in the future where Hull's Ring will come back to relevance, like with Fire Knight. I think it's possible. Bess, though, I just don't ever see being that good. She's another AoE decreased defense champion, like Alexander. She does have another AoE that hits pretty hard, and then her A1, doesn't. She's very like Alexander. Now, she's a bit better than him because she's got two AoEs, but ultimately, she's an AoE decreased defense champion legendary, which is just very outdated, and she's very slow as well. Yeah, I'm not really sold on a Bess. I'm gonna vote for a Bess. I think a Bess is probably the worst of the bunch. So sorry to a Bess. That probably surprised some people. Barbarians, bit of a weaker faction, I would say at first glance. They've got some decent stuff in here, but very few like super OP, like Two Hanorach and Valkyrie, probably the really OP ones. And then we got obviously some decent champs. Kantra, Turvold, I like a lot. I would say the weakest of the bunch. Yeah, there's definitely a few. Like this surrounding still of the Drakes are fairly underwhelming, all of them, to be honest. I would say probably Rorik is the weakest one, I would say. He's just single target damage, which isn't super useful. And yeah, you can do some extra stuff when he's counterattacking. Maybe that's a bit stronger. With the new retaliation set, you stack revenge accessories, but I think generally speaking, this champion is just, I think he's just very poor. Just single target damage either. Where is he actually useful? Where do you actually use him? Pretty much nowhere. I vote for Rorik, but there was a few weaker ones there. Ogre tribes, not many, not many. There's very few in here. Okay, it's got to be Gerda, right? That's an easy pick. It's got to be Gerda. I think War Mother's kind of fun. I have a soft spot for War Mother. Drokgul even maybe has some Fire Knight hard potential with his shield and the counterattack, and Gerptuk's pretty good for Hydra. It's gotta be Gerda. She's gotta be the worst one. Removing one random buff from enemies and putting out 2 poisons, and then she puts out AoE weaken, bit of a debuff spread. She's just very weak. Yeah, there's not too much use for Gerda. I did use her for a little bit. You could just have her be an AoE poisoner for like Ice Golem normal. So she's all right for that. So I did use her a little while for that, just being a really weak champion that put out some poisons for Poison Explosion. But she's, apart from that, pretty much, yeah, pretty terrible champ. Fairly useless. Going to the Lizardman. Interesting. Vergamkar has been buffed, so I definitely don't think it's him anymore. He has AoE decreased defense with buff strips on a 3-turn. He also has AoE increased defense and a shield. He's actually really good now. I actually think Vergamkar is a brilliant champ. He's got a lot going on in his kit there. That's pretty nice. The weakest. Actually, some pretty solid stuff. I would say it's between, for me, probably Basatha and Roxam. Basatha, he has an AoE stun, strength and a bit of a heal. He's pretty poor. Basatha's pretty terrible. Roxam, we just had it guaranteed for him for 30 sacred shards, basically. I gotta say, I think Roxam might be pretty terrible. Like, where do you actually use this champion? He needs to give himself Veil, Perfect Veil, then he has decreased defense, weaken. But, to give himself Veil or Perfect Veil, he does his A2, gives him 50% turn meter. It's just very awkward to actually make it work. That being said, Basatha, man, that's a tough one. Basatha or Roxam? Honestly, they're both pretty useless. They're both pretty... I'll say Basatha is worse, just because you get him so late in the game that, yeah, he's just no use. He's just totally useless, basically. I'll say Basatha. I think Roxam, at least you could pull earlier and he might be all right, but yeah, Basatha has got kind of no redeeming qualities. The Skinwalkers up next. Actually, okay, there's a few stinkers in here. Yeah, there's a few stinkers. I was gonna say they've become a pretty strong faction, and they have, but they've got some bad ones in here. Norog is just a bad champion. So is Warchief as well. They're just bad. But I think Great Hoof Loriaka might be the worst. I mean, I might be a bit biased because of her awful fusion with 2 Summon Rush. But yeah, like block deal with some turn meter. AoE decrease resist, stealing some buffs. I mean, she goes really fast. She gets a lot of turn meter with hoof beats, but what does she do with it? Not very much. She's a pretty terrible champion. I think Great Hoop Loriaka is going to be my vote here. Yeah, I think she'll get my vote. she's just not good. Orcs. Ooh, another faction. Yeah, it's got a few stinkers in here. Some people might go for Growhack. I actually think he could be all right for Dark Fae, which is pretty important. So I think Growhack, he's not great, but he at least has some use. Angar is really bad, but he is useful early game. I'd say probably King Garog is the worst. I think he might have been buffed, but I still don't think he's that good. Like, yeah, he's got an AoE, but it's a 5-turn cooldown. He might get some cooldown reduction. No, he doesn't. Yeah, he scales up a little bit. Okay, he can reduce the cooldown of his AoE with his A2. He just struggles a bit with that affinity, you know? Yeah, I just feel like King Garog is not very good. It's like, yeah, he's a force affinity that can hit hard, but it's a bit awkward. You need the affinity set up right. I don't see him being very useful. I think I will give Garog my vote as being, unfortunately, pretty bad. Demonspawn. Demonspawn. This is actually a really strong faction. Gosh, when you look at this, this is really, really strong. Like, Tyrant is pretty outdated, but he's still actually really good. Like, he's still an AoE HP burn, and he can solo some, you know, lower stage dungeons, which is quite useful. Countess Lix, maybe. Probably Vassal. Like, the others are all pretty darn good. Yeah, especially with Live Arena. I'd say probably Vassal of the Steel. Yeah, equalizing HP, AoE True Fear, decreased attack. Yeah, Vassal. Vassal's got to be the worst. He's got to be the worst. Not much use for him. I did see him used a little bit for some Ice Golem hard stuff, but then Artak came out and made that basically irrelevant. Like, so for Ice Golem hard, he was equalizing HP and putting out AoE decrease attack, and then he could put out some burns on his A1. But it's just not a good kit. It was just sort of tailored for Ice Golem hard. But now there's Artak, so he's irrelevant. I'd say Vassal. He's actually pretty garbage. A lot of Doom Tower champs coming in here. A lot of them. Over in Undead Hordes. Again, we've got some older champs in here for sure. But some quite really powerful ones as well. I would say the weaker ones are... I can never remember them apart. Crypt King is really good. I think Scartorsus is maybe a little bit underrated. I think Scratch used him in the content creator faction wars before, and he's pretty all right. Probably is Suzerain Catan bad? AoE decreased speed. Oh, he's got AoE weaken decreased defense unreliably. He's not great. Oh, Elegias. Yeah, Saito's okay. It's got to be Elegias, right? I think Suzerain Catan's actually not that bad. Yeah, he might. Yeah, I think he got buffed a little bit. I think it's still Elegias, right? Doing a bit of a buff strip and turn meter pushback, putting some skills on cooldown. Not a totally useless champion, right? This move, it can be useful for some faction wars, some Doom Tower stages. Like, you're up against multiple Valkyries. Put all their skills on cooldown. That's okay. But apart from that, yeah, it's got to be Elegias. This champion's just not good. Not very good. Over to the Dark Elves. Interesting. Yeah, you've got some real stinkers in here. Like Blind Seer and Tremeria, I feel like are a bit underwhelming, especially Blind Seer. Ultan's pretty bad. Truas not great. I think you got a few stinkers in there, but Chromax has got to be the one who takes the cake, right? It's pretty much got to be Chromax. Decrease attack A1, single target block buff with 30% turn meter fill A2. Wow, and then an AOE provoke and decrease accuracy. It's just not good, and he can maybe put out some hexes. Chromax, he's just so underwhelming. One of the final Doom Tower rewards. Oh, that's absolutely brutal, the reviews. This champion looks cool, but man, does he suck. Holy moly. The Doom Tower rewards really got bad. Like, they started off okay, the champions, and then it just became like pure filler, where it was like, all right, we've got a cool art design, and we've got this terrible kit that we never implemented. Let's just give this terrible kit to this cool-looking champion, and we'll call it a day, right? It will keep him busy. It's fine. Knights Revenant. Knights Revenant. I know Whirlim is a little bit weak for Void Legendary, but probably not the worst. Bystophus isn't very good. I think he might have been buffed recently. 3-turn block active skills. Wait, oh no, sorry. 4-turn block active skills, decrease defense as well. Okay, now that's actually pretty all right now that he's been buffed. Decrease defense and block active skills. That's a nice combo. I think it's got to be Thea. Going back to Doom Tower. I have a soft spot for Thea. I liked Thea back in the day, but time has not been kind at all. When Thea came out, her deal was this Hex Reaper AoE attack, the damage scales for Hex, it just hit incredibly hard. Super, super hard. However, Baron got reworked, Jorgit is added. Like, they've just added so many more powerful nukers in, on top of the fact that there are now more cleansers in the game that are strong, like Elva, for example, Mithrala, for example, cleansing off Hex, you know, in Arena. And there's also Stone Skin where you can't even get Hex out. I just feel like she's such a one-trick pony. Yeah, she's just not good. It's just hard. It's really hard to get those Hexes out. She has affinity problems as well. And yeah, she does hit hard, but there's way easier champions to use. And now there's also loads of champions that hit way harder than her. So she's totally fallen off. It's really disappointing. She definitely needs a buff because, again, visually amazing. But just not good. Not good anymore. For the dwarves, not a bad set of champs, actually. Not bad. Like Kira, she's not bad, and Samar, he's seen some use in live arena. It's like a HP nuker. It's gotta be Granjar, right? It's gotta be, yeah. This champion is just terrible. 4-turn cooldown AoE HP burn. 4 turns? Come on, come on. There's epics that have 3 turns. There's a void epic, isn't there? That is Skrank. Is Skrank not a 3-turn cooldown AoE burn? Void? I think he is. Yikes. Double hit, block debuffs, and removing a single buff. Oh man, this champion is so bad. What's his passive? Doesn't take damage from burns. Heals when burn. Oh my god. When he gets frozen, he freezes the. This champion is so bad. Oh my god. This is probably the worst legendary champion in the game. Again, Doom Tower champion. He looks absolutely amazing. Like, giant sword on his back. That's freaking cool, man. But he is just garbage. God, he's so bad. He's so bad. Oh, all right. Shadowkin. Pretty strong. Pretty strong selection here, actually, on the whole. There's definitely a few weaker ones in here for sure. People might be thinking Noble or Noble. I don't think so anymore. I think this champ is okay for, like, Doom Tower hard. Tatsu is fairly underwhelming. AoE, decreased resist, yeah, that's not great. Does put sleep out and some turn meter. It's not the worst. Tatsu, yeah, she's not great. She's probably not the worst. It's probably a Jingwan was buffed. Jinro's pretty bad. Probably Gamoran is the worst one. Again, this champ looks cool. I just love, my favorite part is probably like these super creepy handprints going up the bottom of his robes. Like, this champion visually is so good. This champion should have been a Doom Tower champion, right? Looks amazing, and he's absolute garbage. But he's got this thing where you can block revive a single dead enemy, like on a 4-turn cooldown. What is that? Where he puts out some fears, and it's not good. He's AoE steal 1 random buff and then spread 1 random buff. Man, if it spread all of the buffs that he stole, that'd be pretty good, but as it is, it's not. He's just pretty bad. He got some use originally because he can revive a random ally for the final boss of Faction Wars, right? You kill the final boss, he's one-shot one of your champions, and this brings them back. So you get the 3-star and you get Lydia, but no, there's much better champions in here now. I'm surprised this champion has got such good reviews. I think he's actually really bad. So Gamoran gets my vote. And then Sylvan Watchers. That's fascinating to me. Like, the 2 newer factions, Shadowkin has a few stinkers, but man, there are some really, really, really strong legendaries in here. Like, wow, that's a great faction. Sylvan Watchers is pretty weak, huh? Like, damn, Sylvan Watchers kind of sucks on the legendaries. Who's the worst one? I'm thinking probably Lady of Ireth. They're all pretty bad. God, there's some really bad ones here. Oh my god, they've got several factions worth of stinkers. Lady of Ireth is pretty terrible. Like, strengthen and heal, cleanse, and yeah, do some stuff, activate some continuous heals. She's just not great. She's not great. She's like a very bland support. She's not awful, but she's not anything special. Saoirse, likewise. AoE some burns. AoE 4 turn cooldown burn. Yikes. Extend burns. Attack by enemies under burns heals her a bit. Activates burns. She could have some use for Ice Golem Hard, I suppose, but God, okay, she's pretty terrible. Hydra. It'd be good for Hydra. No, not really. The turn meter stuff's not really going to help. Man, Ruark's may be kind of interesting, and Emic with the taunt for the new dungeon. Clydna is pretty awful as well. Block debuffs revive on death. This is at least a nice heal with AoE decreased speed and leech, but Clydna is pretty terrible. Oh yeah, that's yeah. This champion looks great, but I can't think of a use for her. She just seems really bad. This is tough. Oh, this is the hardest one. There's so many that are bad. I won't vote for Lady of Ireth. I think could be kind of all right healer early game. Oh geez, yeah, people do not like this champion. Oh, this is tough. This is tough. Like Clydna as a Void Legendary, she's just so disappointing. Saoirse, you have to basically buy her with a lot of money, a few thousand, right, for Plarium points. She's not doing much. Like maybe okay for Ice Golem Hard, but again, Artak's probably made her irrelevant. So I think it's got to be Saoirse. I think Saoirse's got to be the vote. Yeah, I think so. I'll go with that. That was hard though. That was hard. So there you go, guys. Let me know, what do you think of my picks right there? What do you think? Do you agree? Were there any factions I got totally wrong? I'm sure I might have missed someone terrible somewhere. That was kind of fun to go through though. Some factions like Demonspawn was hard because yeah, I guess Vassal, now I look back at it, he definitely does seem pretty terrible, but man, a lot of the Demonspawn are actually really good. Demonspawn's really strong, for instance, and then Sylvan Watchers is actually shockingly weak. But there you go. I thought that was interesting. Guys, thank you for watching. I hope that you enjoyed. Give it a thumbs up if you did, and I will see you all soon for more. Goodbye.